Great, just checking all the settings. Hi, my name's Matt Taylor. I am the Clinical Director from Response Physiotherapy, and today we're looking at how working from home at the kitchen table, as I am here, and what we can do about it and how we fix it all up and make it all work well. Trying to reduce the stresses and strains that you can feel on your body from being in these positions. So the first thing we're going to do is look at the height of everything. We're going to look at what we can see, etc. Now I've got an extra light coming through here, so what we're going to do is we're going to, but you might not have this, you might not think about it, you might not have thought about the light you need, but you need lots of light. Okay, so we're going to switch those on first of all. Alright, I'm just going to make sure that this is nice and clear to start with, and make sure I can see really nicely. As much artificial light, we haven't got any sunlight, but we also don't want the screen lit up by a load of sunlight behind you. You don't want a load of sunlight in front of you, meaning that the screen really focuses the eyes and you get loads of eye strain, etc. So in this position you can see that I am low for the keyboard. My elbows are below my wrists. Okay, and this is the first bit that we need to consider when we're trying to set ourselves up in the right place. And this is going to I find myself leaning on the edge of the table and then dropping my wrist down like this. And the other thing that I'm doing is I am making sure my thumbs are ready to hit the spacebar. And what that's doing is causing me to drop in here, and it's causing me to put extra strain around my elbows and my wrists. You can see the angle that I've adopted here. And one of the reasons for that is the keyboard on a laptop is a bit more closed up, it's a bit more squished up than a normal keyboard. But first of all, we're going to sort out the height of this elbow compared to the wrist. And we do that quite simply by raising me up. And now you can see instantly I've put my wrists in a better position and I've raised my elbow height, and so when I do lean on the table, it doesn't automatically make me want to rest into this position. So it keeps me in the right place. So that's first thing. Second thing we're going to do is now begin to look at the screen and the height of it. You can see that many people will know that the screen height should be just a little bit below eye height, eye position, the top of the screen. Now we're not going to achieve that with a laptop. It's going to be nearly impossible to get everything perfect, but you've got to try and reduce the level of strain taking place, and we've got to try and get this to be a good compromise in the right places. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to raise the laptop up. Now that's great, I've got the screen height in some good position, but now I've got to make sure I've got an extra keyboard. All right, and these are not expensive. These are not expensive. But we need to make sure we transition from this keyboard, because now the stresses and strains have gone into my shoulder. And again, let's have a look at the position that would create there. I'd have to raise my shoulders. And here's the biggest thing. Here's the reason why all of this is a problem. It's about this position. It's this rotation inwards that we naturally have to do to hit the spacebar. But we naturally create a rotation there, and that rotation puts strain all the way up through into the neck. Alright, and this rotation will also cause me to slump down here into that position. So we've got my extra keyboard. The screen is roughly, it's okay. It's not perfect, but it's okay. And then we've got the keyboard, which is in now a better position. Now if we compare the size of these keyboards, it's probably only 3 centimeters difference in the width of the keyboard. So the laptop keyboard's that wide, and the normal keyboard from escape button to return button is that far. Okay, but that 3 centimeters means instead of being here and all cramped up, I can be a little bit more spaced out. Okay, really important. And the position here of the elbows, whereas the position of the elbows here, they can be a bit more relaxed. They can hang from my shoulder as opposed to being out here, okay, which would be created on that keyboard. So I've got my extra keyboard, all right? Doesn't cost a lot to do this. As you can see, I've just used a packaging cardboard box I have here. But you can buy extra stuff, and I'll bring all that in shortly. So I've got my keyboard, I've got my monitor at the right height, I've got my extra keyboard. And then I'm going to bring in an extra mouse, okay? And the reason for that is when you're using the trackpad, again, it just causes you to rotate this way and the elbow sticks out, okay? Even if you're here, the elbow will come out, and that loads the strain up into your neck and shoulder area. So having this mouse allows me to reduce the stresses and strains that are coming up this arm, okay? However, here's what normally happens when you get a mouse, is we start to just get into a real effortless position, all right? And the problem with effortless is that it's okay for a short while, 5 minutes, this is okay for 5 minutes, but after 5 minutes this will start to create changes in the joint here at the front where your collarbone meets your breastbone. It'll change here, it changes the muscle tension coming into these joints, and it starts to stiffen these joints. And I was doing a remote digital physiotherapy consultation the other day, and the problems the person was describing was the ringing in their ears, the tinnitus in their ears. It's just a brand new condition that had started. And one of the things that we've got to do about that is make sure these joints at the top of the rib cage are moving, because the muscles from here go to the base of the head, and that will start to then change the tension through here, and it'll start to give you symptoms that you just wouldn't get previously, whether that's ringing in the ears, whether that's headaches coming over the top or coming over the eyes or coming over the top here. And you can change all that by being loose in the right places. So I've got the keyboard now, I've got the mouse, got the keyboard, and this mouse will get away from me. So when it gets to here, this is a really awkward position, especially if you're going to spend a long time in this position, all right? So one of the things we can do, in true something I made earlier, or got ready earlier, is I can prevent myself from getting into that position by placing a marker on the table, okay? And this marker now stops me. As soon as I go over that marker or go near it, I can pull it back, and I can then be in the right place. I can have this shoulder held in the right place. As soon as it goes over the marker, you can start to see my arm and shoulder are now beginning to lead me to descend into this slumped position. As I said before, it's not bad for short periods of time, but it's bad if it's there for 30 minutes or 20 minutes even. So I'm going to bring that back, and again, it helps me pull back here. It helps me stay upright. So really this mouse position, or even if we take away that keyboard again, and we take away the hastily made up monitor stand, this trackpad does the same thing. It makes me pull down like this. The screen is pulling me down. I'm blocking these joints. I'll end up in this poking chin position that we all talk about. Even if I pull that chin in, I've still got this stiffness going to happen across the back of base of my neck here, and that will affect these muscles going into my shoulders. So I've been out to the shop, and I've now bought a monitor stand, and in true physio style I've got the next things I'm going to need ready as well. So I've got my monitor stand now. I'm going to bring my keyboard back in. Okay, and everything's now helping me stay upright and keep my rib cage open. So if you imagine, if I can get into this position, which I don't need to be in now because I've compromised, I've worked out the compromise, I've not allowed this mouse to go too far, but ultimately we still will end up in this position a little bit for some of the time. As soon as we find ourselves in this position, it's time for a break. It's time to get up, walk around, make a cup of tea, whatever's required. It's time for a stretch, it's time for movement. But being in this position, here's the key bits, okay? If I do end up in that position, just look at the space my lungs now have to breathe. Okay, my breathing is going to be affected, and if my breathing's affected, one of the reasons I might get headaches is because I'm not breathing into the deeper part of my lungs on a regular basis. Part of the reason we yawn is to get a bit more air into the base of the lungs, a big sigh, get a bit more air into the base of the lungs again and get all of this area used. It should be used regularly. Now, I'm going to just move the camera slightly now, just so you can see my hips. As you can see, I've got rid of the help today, so there's no one working the camera except for me. Now, you can see my hips in this position, and if I slump, I can slump in a number of ways. Okay, I can slump from the top, and I can slump from the bottom. Okay, and this is all fine as long as it's for short periods of time. What's not fine is the position that keeps me upright also requires me to use my hip flexor, and my hip flexor runs from my groin through my stomach to my back. It helps me hold my back up whilst we're here. So once I've been in this position for a period of time, I'm going to have to release this area in order to be able to then move efficiently and well. And if I'm going to go and exercise after I've been at the desk, I need to just release this stuff off, make sure it's moving better, make sure the groins are free, so that when I exercise I've got no leftover tightnesses from being in a seated position for a long period of time. So we're going to look at how do we affect these positions and improve ourselves after we've been at work. Okay, so again, like everybody else, I've narrowed everything down. I've got this space here to work from. And so one of the things that would be good to do after you've been in a sitting position for long periods of time is to free up your upper back. So this towel, rolled up hand towel, goes in the back, and we just roll back over it like so. Okay, and the arm position is really important. If the arms are down here, it doesn't work as well. If the arms are here at 90 degrees at the shoulder, it really opens up the rib cage. Opens up the rib cage like so, and we'll stretch across the front. And if you think about the position we were just in, all of those things have been tightened up from that sitting position. So we get into that hand position there, and then we just lay there. It's the easiest rehab or recovery exercise you're going to have. Effectively, permission to lie down on a rolled up towel for 4 or 5 minutes, just to free up the tensions of the day and the movement of the day. Okay. The next thing we've got to do is we need to change our hip flexor work. And what we're doing here now is, by squeezing this foam roll, what we're going to do is we're going to engage the muscles on the inside of our thighs, and that is then going to help us switch off our hip flexors. So our brain has been taught, or has been told, to keep our hip flexors tight because we've been encouraging it to be in that position, and now we're going to ask it to release those hip flexors. And the way we do that is we work our muscles on the inside of our thigh at the same time as doing a very simple crunch. Now, obviously, there are situations when it would be unwise to do this. If you have an irritable back, then it would be unwise to use this until you've spoken to a physiotherapist. And again, one of the ways to do that in current climate is to have one of the remote digital physio consultations, which we can set up by ringing the office, which is still open, and we can get you booked in for that. The other way of doing it is to really, even a small amount like so, bringing the neck up like this, will engage your stomach muscles and help switch off the hip flexors. It doesn't have to be a big movement. Okay? Now the key to this movement is you've got to keep your heels on the floor. You've got to keep your feet on the floor. So if you keep your feet on the floor, then it really does lock down the legs, keep this foam roller in the right place, and it makes the superficial aspect of your abdominal muscles work. Okay, so that's as far as we need to go. And that's as far as we need to go. We don't need to go for a big sit-up, and in fact this is the worst thing you could do, because that would engage the hip flexors as part of that movement. So we don't want to get into that position. So just a small crunches and about 6 to 7 of these to get everything loosened off in the hips. Brilliant. Okay, so I'm going to bring that back up again. Over to that position. So there are a couple of other things I'm going to challenge you on to make sure that you're trying different things and trying to get not only recovery but also a better position whilst working. Okay, now an unstable surface, a round ball. Okay, and I'm going to put that into there. Now what that does is it puts it in front of the seam of my shirt. Okay, so I want this in front of the seam of my shirt, and then I put the ball really gently and I hold it gently there. Okay, now what that's going to do is challenge my shoulder muscles. You can already see that I'm in a slightly different position. If I take that ball away, you see my shoulder come forwards, and if I put that ball back in, and now I'm holding myself differently, and I have to do that to keep that ball in place, and then I can't get there's no chance of me getting further away from this. Now, this is a training aid, okay? It's not something we should do all the time. It's a way of training our muscles in our shoulder to work better. And so I might put that in the other side as well. It's just about can fit. There we go. A bit tricky when you first do it. And now both my shoulders are working across the back of my shoulders to hold me in a better position. Because it's a training aid, I'm going to do it for 5 minutes max, and then I'm going to take them out and we'll put them down. I might do that 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes in the afternoon, just to give me that feeling of being in the right place. And I might do it before I finish, so that I can recover. Even being in this position for a few minutes helps me recover properly. And then finally, again, I couldn't remember where this elastic band was then as I was talking. So this is it's called a loop band. Okay, easily available on online shops, and it's going to help us with this position again, with this chest position being upright. And what we're after here, well, the key bit of it is my knuckles are in a straight line down here. Okay, so having the knuckles in a straight line there like that, and then pulling from the shoulder. So I'm not trying to strengthen anywhere else on my arm, I'm just trying to strengthen in my back, and I'm not going to pull very far. Now with me, I have a weakness in this right arm, so when I put my arms there like that, my brain wants to do this to make it easier for me, but I must keep it in its weakest sense. So I mustn't allow it to come back in, okay? And I must, when I'm doing it, there again. So just 5 or 6 of these again. You can do that in the morning, in the afternoon, once a day. Anything's better than nothing at this moment in time. So the whole point of our live stream is to give you this idea of a setup of the desk, to start to get you to think about recovery exercises from the effects of work. All work has a cumulative effect, and we need to be able to undo that cumulative effect easily, without too much trouble. Nice simple exercises, quickly done, and then we're off doing the next thing. And then when we get back to a busier life, these things are really important, that we can recover really nicely. There are other hints and tips going to come along, so if you liked what you saw today, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you are suffering from already having been at a home office desk and you would like a remote digital physio consultation, please get in touch with the office. Either email them at info@responsephysio.com or on the phone number 0330 024 1377. There are more clips coming. We're going to do the standing desk and exercises that you can do whilst you're standing to keep everything loose and free. We're going to do car seating position and how to cope with the stresses and strains of the seat. Loads of hints and tips, loads more videos to come. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Hope you enjoyed today.